You're not doing well. Your father was a friend. He was a friend to everybody, so I know everyone says that, but I worked with him when I was at Nextel for quite a while.
Oh, wow, okay.
Used to call him all the time. Yep. Please. Come on here. I'm happy to help. Here. Just go ahead and grab your seat.
Sit down.
We'll ask you guys to just share the mic.
Really?
All right, we're going to double up here. It's getting late, and we certainly want to allow people to get home. So we're going to have a double honor here of help us celebrate the inductions of both Benny Parsons and Raymond Parks. And here for representing Benny are his widow, Terry Parsons, and sons, Keith and Kevin. A reminder on Benny, 1973 Premier Series champion, and certainly one of the most beloved figures in NASCAR history, not only for being a driver, but also for being one of our colleagues for a long time. And then Raymond Parks, here representing and helping us honor him, granddaughter Patricia DePotti and widow Violet Parks. A reminder on Raymond won the first 2 championships in NASCAR, the Modified Championship in 1948 and the Premier Series Championship in 1949. Let's go ahead and open it up for questions. We can start here with Mark Garrow. Let's get a mic to him. Sorry, Matt. It's coming at you. There we go.
Mark Garrow, PRN. This is to start with the Parsons clan. Terry, we've talked about this before. You know, Benny had a little list that he wanted you to take care of if he passed away after battling the cancer. And one of those was, please don't let him forget me, right? And that's sort of driven you to keep promoting him for the Hall of Fame all these years. Can the three of you talk about now he won't be forgotten? He's kind of etched in the wall forever.
Well, I mean, as far as my list, there's still one thing on that list that isn't complete, but this was the big one, that I thought he had only said that to me, was, Terry, don't let him forget me. I found out since then from different crew chiefs that he had from years ago that he said the same thing to them while he was battling cancer. So we all knew that this was what he wanted. We didn't know how we were going to make it happen, but we knew we didn't want people to forget him. And then when the Hall of Fame, he knew he was on the original list for the Hall of Fame. Winston Kelly had called and told him that. And he was so deeply honored that he was even make a consideration list at that point in time. But then when he got in to the Hall of Fame and it was announced that day here that he had made it, one of the crew chiefs, and I don't remember which one it was, and I want to say it was Waddell Wilson actually, that mentioned to me, he said, well, there it is. And I said, what? And he said, don't let people forget me. They can't now, he's in the Hall of Fame. And so I really didn't put the two together until somebody else said, well, there it is. And it happened that way. And I'm sure the next question is going to be, what's the other one that I didn't get done? Everybody needs to call Bruton Smith. He wanted me to get the North Wilkesboro Speedway reopened, and so you know how that's going right now. But anyway, we're still working on that.
Wow, that's a big one. He didn't leave you with an easy task there, of course.
Softening up a little bit.
Can Keith and Kevin just talk about maybe their favorite memory of Benny at the track?
Sure.
Keith, Kevin, please.
At the track, probably when he started driving the 55 car, they were gracious enough to let Keith and I be involved. Up until then, we had been there and sitting in the stands or in the infield in the car with our mother. But when we drove for Mr. Jackson and Johnny Hayes, they were nice enough. Keith and I ran gas. When they put the gas in the car, so we felt more involved. And then I started sticking my head in the window and just listening to conversations. And it was, you know, back then it was more family-like, I think, than it is now. I don't go now, so I wouldn't know. But it was much, the drivers all talked to each other in the garage. But that was just really good times.
I think mine would be tonight, but maybe not for the reason you think. We had we were fortunate enough to have, I guess everybody gets to bring people, and we had his crew chief when he won his 2 ARCA championships was here, a man named Ralph Young. Travis Carter, who was his crew chief when he won the championship and the Daytona 500, was here. David Ift, who was his crew chief in 1979 and 80, was here. Leo Jackson, that Kevin mentioned, that was his owner, was here. Andy Petrie, that worked on those cars for years, was here. I mean, that group of people has never been together that close in my lifetime that I can remember, and it was just neat to see those guys and to just know that they are such a big part of this, and they enjoyed it. You know, you asked Terry about Terry's, thing about not let nobody forget him. I mean, you guys probably know Tex Powell, who's been in the sport for a long time, and I'll try to be brief, but he tracked down the car that my dad won the championship in that had been sold multiple times about 7 or 8 years ago, and dedicated his life to restoring that car. He didn't do it for any money. I mean, he paid for it out of his pocket or got help from people. I mean, he just did it for our dad. I mean, so I knew that he would never be forgotten with people like Tex Powell and Mike Powell and Richie and Les Bars out there that rebuilt that car. I mean, that means everything that those guys did that for him.
And that car he's talking about is the car that is here in the Hall of Fame. And the end of that story is that as they put that car together, there was only one piece missing, and it was the gas cap. And back then it was blue, and the car was orange. And Les made one of the crew guys that helped put the car back together made the comment, "Too bad we don't have the original gas cap." And Tex Powell said, "Wait a minute," and he went out to his brand-new Cadillac Escalade, got the gas cap off of the truck, and brought it back inside and said, "I've had this on every car I've ever owned since 1973.
Wow. Great story. Let's go to Wolfgang and then over here to Mike.
A question to Violet Parks, Wolfgang Monser from Germany, Ranchport Press Agency. We heard today as well, especially from Rick Hendrick, that everything is sponsorship driven and money, and without a sponsor you cannot race, not in NASCAR, not in any kind of other championship. How was the time back in 1948 when Raymond had a team? How was it financed? Did you have sponsorship already to that time?
How was Raymond's car financed in the time that he ran in the late 40s?
I have no idea because I didn't know it then.
She didn't know him then.
I would imagine he financed it
On his own.
himself.
That was all money, I would imagine, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he financed it himself.
Yeah. Let's go over here to Mike.
Mike Hembry, USA Today. Patricia, your grandfather sort of left racing all of a sudden after doing so well. Did he talk much to you over the years about that, and did he talk about really missing it and wanting to get back?
He always carried NASCAR with
Go ahead and grab that mic there, sorry.
He always carried NASCAR with him. He did tell me one time, we were in a car and we were talking about racing, and I asked him why he left. And his exact words were, well, it was expensive. And he said, I had a family to take care of. As most of you know, he left home at 14, and he had 15 brothers and sisters. And throughout their lifetime, he always wanted to make sure his family was taken care of and that he was there for them. But when he left, like I said, he didn't leave it. He physically left. But if you went into his office in the store, he had everything he loved right there. He had his trophies, he had his pictures, he had his family surrounding him in the stores, and he had his business.
But in that office, did he work there until
He worked in the stores until he was in his late 80s. He would go 2 or 3 times a day into the store for as long as I can remember. He was very hardworking, had very strong work ethic. He was a very honest man. He wanted everyone to be honest with him, but he was also very much a gentleman and very humble.
Very neat. Let's go to Lee and then back to Hunter.
Lee Spencer, Motorsport.com. I have a question for both families. And Terry, I know you've met a lot of drivers, and they have a tendency to be a bit insecure. And, well, I mean, I'm just being honest, but for Benny to ask people not to forget him when he was such bigger than life and so unforgettable, why do you think he thought that way, that people would forget him when he was such, just such an incredible, beloved individual?
He didn't know he was bigger than life. He didn't know that he was as famous as people tell me now. He didn't see himself in that way. To him, he was still the same guy that was born and raised in Wilkes County, that lived in Detroit, that drove a cab, that he saw himself with the common person, not somebody that got someplace to be famous. And I think that's why, really, in reality, I think that's why he connected so well with the people that were listening to him on television commentate races, because that came across in everything that he said. I mean, he didn't talk above their heads. He talked so that people understood what he was talking about whenever he was explaining how a car worked or what was wrong with a car. And I really, he didn't know. He didn't know that he was as big as a deal as he really turned out to be.
And for the Parks family to hear people talk about Raymond's contribution and that NASCAR might not have evolved to the sport it is today without his presence, without his contribution, can you touch on that and, what the people, how the people describe that tonight?
Yeah.
I don't know how to answer that exactly.
I see it almost as a partnership between Bill France and Raymond. Bill France created the idea, started it, brought everybody into the Streamline Motel. But I think my granddad loved the sport and what he was doing and the cars and the racing, that to contribute financially was to help build that part of the dream. And I honestly do not believe he ever imagined it would get to where it is today. I don't know if that answers what you're asking, but.
I think it did just fine.
Okay, good.
Great job. Let's go back there to Hunter.
My name is Hunter Thomas with thefourthturn.com. This one's for you, Kevin. Your father, whenever fans watched him on TV, they felt like they could relate to him. Can you talk about his ability to communicate with whoever it is in the garage or in the grandstands, and also how he made racing fun for everybody?
Well, he was a big race fan. He got that from his father. There was not a bigger race fan than our grandfather. And he took him to his first race at Wilkesboro. So he just loved, as Keith said earlier, loved everybody in racing. And that came across. I was talking to Ned Jarrett earlier tonight, and when the two of them and Bob Jenkins worked on their team together, that, I'm biased, but that was, I think, the pinnacle, because they all got along, and it was like they were sitting in their living room. So I think just his regular speak, for lack of a better phrase, came through to the fans. He didn't use $10 words.
Well, listen, we certainly appreciate you all being here this evening, and before we let you go, we have a couple more honors for both of you. Each of this year's inductees were recognized in Congress by the United States Representative Richard Hudson of North Carolina's 8th Congressional District. Mr. Hudson's remarks honoring each of the inductees from the 2017 class were recorded in the Congressional Record, the official record of all congressional proceedings, and copies of the remarks are framed with us here tonight. Also, for the Parsons family, Mayor Robert Johnson of North Wilkesboro has declared today Benny Parsons Day in Benny's hometown, so congratulations on that honor. And then also, for the Parks family, the Dawson County Board of Commissioners proclaimed today Raymond Parks Day in his hometown of Dawson County. So congratulations on both those honors. We'll get a photo before you head off stage. Thank you for being here this evening. Let's do the parks first. We'll just take a picture here before that. We'll take a couple from the parks. Okay. Just bear with one moment. Go
right ahead.
Right here, we'll take a picture before we come out. There you go. Let me bring him right back there with you.
Newspaper, Western Sound, I'm reading a story online. Keith Parsons. Keith Parsons. AV stories up there. Not sure how much.
Good. Really?
Blair in this room. Thank you very much.